Good morning and welcome to the Dynastee training webinars. My name is Hans Bloem. Today is the first presentation of a series of 7 during 4 webinars, 4 weeks in September and October. We go first to look for people who are joining us now. For example, if you can't hear us, look to the slides that you see here and try to understand if you have problems, what you can do to join us listening to the presentations. If you have a question or remark, please note that do not use the chat box. We will give you another possibility to forward your questions. And in particular, when you have the questions after the presentations, we will have the time to answer your questions or come back to your remarks during the last webinar, during the second part of it on October 13. If you have questions, please send them by email to my address, hansbloem@inive.org. Note also that all the presentations, they will be recorded and they will become available on our website, the dynastee.info website, and that will be not before the end of the last webinar, but probably during the rest of October before the 1st of November. So take note of it. Also, this presentation will be available on our website. Well, let me start then by giving you some information about what is going on. This introduction has been prepared by 3 of my colleagues. Richard Fitton, you will hear him later in the last series of webinars. Luc van Dalen and myself. We are very happy with the management team from INIVE, Maria Kapsalaki and Valérie Le Prince. So they make it very well-organized event. Well, Dynastee, what is Dynastee? We are a grouping, an informal network that exists under the umbrella of the INIVE. Dynastee is dealing with the dynamic analysis, simulation, and testing of energy and environmental performance of buildings. I think that is clear from this slide. We have a history, and this history brings us back to 1985, when we started with European projects, and some of them are still referred to, like the PASIS projects, like the PASLink project, the PV hybrid, IQ test, DMBC, etc. What happened in the past is that we were starting an economic interest grouping in '94. That was the result of these European research projects. In 2005, however, we decided not to continue with the economic interest grouping, but to put it under the umbrella of INIVE. And we decided also to change the name from the PASLink EIG into Dynastee. That was more giving the aims that this grouping had. And we brought our expertise, knowledge into IEA project, and in particular Annex 58 of the building programs of the IEA, and the final running, the Annex 71, which is now. We decided during these IEA projects to start with training of people, and we did that in the form of summer schools. Well, the last 2 years, it was obvious that it was quite difficult to organize the physical summer schools, so we started also by organizing training webinars. And this is the 2nd year that we have done it. So you are now participating in the 2nd edition of it. Well, that's a little bit of the history. This is a little bit how we are organized. Dynastee is not the only grouping under INIVE. You can see that there are other networks as well, like the AIVC, like the Venticool, like Build Up. They are all running under the international network INIVE. It is that we at present are dealing with the network of excellence that is a part of the Annex 71 of the IEA program. The objective of Dynastee is to maintain and to be a global leading network, specifically on the dynamic testing and evaluation of energy performance in buildings. So that started about 20 years ago when the first steps were made by the European Commission to deal with the energy performance of buildings. Our objective is also that we should consolidate our existing knowledge. This knowledge, you should understand, is coming from academic world, research world, and from industry. And we built up this knowledge during the last 20 years. So we like to keep that and to bring that to the young people, to the students, to the people who are really requiring this specific techniques of performing tests and analyze the test. So that is really what we are aiming to do. We are working, as said before, as a grouping, and we are an informal network, which means that all people can join us and participate in the knowledge that we have gathered and distribute it, to work together in international programs as well. So our aim is also that we would like to bring together people that have the same interest in doing so, in dynamic calculation techniques, but also the measurement techniques, and to assess the thermal performance of buildings. How do we work? Well, we had some money left from the previous networking, so we are running there, and with that money, and we are getting often some sponsoring from industry. But a lot of the work that we are doing is also voluntary work. At the moment, the activities that we have done over the last couple of years is being a task leader in the several IEA projects, like which the one is now about to finish, the Annex 71. We facilitate also interaction between other groupings, in particular the normalization grouping, like SEN. We have close contacts with industry. We work also with other annexes from IEA together. And this is what you can see in the organization of several workshops that we have done. Very interesting one was in Bilbao in 2019, 2 years ago, that the building is the cornerstone of our future energy system. We are, as said before, we are organizing physical summer schools. They are usually a week long, and we have organized also several webinars. Our communication with the people is through newsletters. We have published so far 18. You can find them on our website, dynastee.info. But we also have developed tools in the past. We have collected data, high quality data that can be used for analysis. We have produced reports and papers enough. So let's now turn into the direction of the aim of the webinars, the training webinars. So the main objective is to train a dynamic methodology. That is what we are intended to do, and that is only for the assessment of the thermal performance of a building. And that can be a building component, a wall, a window, etc. And we can also look into whole buildings performances. And then you can imagine that there are all kind of types of buildings, from apartments to whole apartment blocks. What we try to do is also the recently very interesting impact of the nearly zero energy buildings. What is the performance of the building itself, and how do you calculate, or how do you use the information to express that in a kind of a performance value for that building? So renewable energy technologies in the built environment, they have a particular place in the whole assessment. All the approaches that we will use are combinations of building physics, the knowledge of building physics, how to apply mathematics, and how to deal with the statistical methods that are available. That is the aim of this course, to give you insight in what is available and what should be considered as for you for a specific application. So we are using data that is really of high quality and that is collected by doing measurements. So this is very important to understand, that it is not simulated data, it is not generated by mathematical models, but is coming from real life and from full-scale buildings. So we are using that kind of information. Often these measurements are carried out by experts, and they do it in the field, in situ. That means that the performance and the analysis of that kind of real data and the performance assessment, they have to be considered in a very careful way. So what we try to do is to reduce the uncertainty of the whole process of analysis. One of the things that we have noticed is that there is a measurement gap. The measurement gap, you can consider that as the difference between the measurements and the expression that is coming from simulation. Often the standards, they describe a way how to calculate the performance, but then the measurements, they are not really fitting to the expected results from simulation. And one of the things that is important, and we will address that also in our analysis method, is to use the common value for the thermal performance of a building element or for a whole building, and that is the U value. So we will come back to the measurement gap, and I know that Richard Fitton will address that also in his presentation at the end of the series of webinars. So as said before the whole problems with the COVID, we had physical summer schools. Usually they are taking place for about a week, so we can have direct interaction with the students, and we can discuss with them the problems in the analysis method. So, but as said before, that this is not possible this year. We hope that we can organize it again in 2022. So next year somewhere, you will get information about it. The series of webinars that you are now participating in, they are only a substitute. They are a limited version of what we are presenting during the physical summer schools. So these series of 4 webinars in the coming 4 weeks, they are only giving you a kind of a basic information, which is valuable as well. What will be presented, it's from my colleagues as well. So I've put here a listing what we will address during these sessions. There will be 7 presentations, and you will see that all kind of aspects, they will be addressed. You can read it carefully, and see if what is interesting for you. But in fact, they are all related, from things like simplified modeling until increased complexity. You should understand a physical process, but you should also at the same time have enough basic knowledge on how to work with statistical analysis and mathematical models. One of the things that we have noticed also is that the variability of a lot of aspects when you do real measurements is very important, and also the knowledge about what is not able to be measured. So we call that not measured phenomena. We will address that also in one of our presentations. These are the people who will do it in the coming weeks. From Spain, from CIEMAT, is Maria Jose. We have from Bilbao University, we have Irati, as well as Aitor. Aitor will be the second speaker today. Then we have from Glasgow University, we have Paul Baker. From Lyngby University, we have Peter Bacher. From the University of Salford, Richard Fitton. And I hope that Luc van Dalen will be able to be at the last webinar as well. So you can see we are quite an international grouping, and we hope that our knowledge that is coming to you. So for today, I am now speaking and presenting the introduction, but I will continue with my presentation discussing the general approach of applying dynamic analysis techniques. Aitor, he will follow with a presentation on building physics, how to use sensors and instruments, and what will be all the problems, or not all the problems, but how to deal with measurements in reality. Next week, there will be Maria Jose Jimenez. She will explain the experimental setup and how high quality data has been produced that we will be made available for those who like to do the analysis. You can find that on our website, the Dynastee Info website, and I will give you later, I give you the exact address where to find it. Paul Baker, then he will apply one of the tools that we have been developing within our network. He will use LORD and apply LORD to the data that has been produced by Maria Jose. Then the third webinar will be starting with the presentation from Peter Bacher. He will combine building physics and mathematical techniques, and he will introduce also two different methods, the method on discrete time as well as the method on continuous time. They have developed also a very interesting program, CTSMR, and the second presentation of that day will be done by Irati, and she will apply CTSMR to the data that has been produced by Maria Jose Jimenez at the PSA. So that will be the third webinar. The last webinar, that will be the 13th of October, will be given by Richard Fitton. He will introduce the analysis of metering data. Metering data should be considered as a slightly different content of data that is becoming available from measurements in the built environment. What are the limitations? What is so specific of this data, and what kind of analysis techniques could be used? And then the second part of that day will be on answering the questions that you are putting to us, and we hope that we can give you a satisfying answer to that. So we will deal with all the questions after the third webinar. please send it to the address that was given in the beginning of this presentation. So a last word about the future of Dynastee. Dynastee will anyhow continue with the training. And we hope that we are able to have in Almeria, in Spain next year, 2020, again, a full summer school week where we can have directly interaction with the participants. And what can be expected after 22? We are trying to extend our knowledge and make available our expertise in different technologies. In particular, we will try to focus more on analysis of metering data. You will see that we probably, if we are continuing, we might again participate in IEA projects. We are not sure about that, but anyhow, a Dynastee will be available for any future activity that you are interested in. So as said before, it's an informal network and you can join us whenever you want.